What is the best diet to combine with intermittent fasting in 2023? Based upon newer research that's really come out. Well, there's a really cool study that came out October of 2022 that paints a very clear picture for where we might need to start going. In 2019, 2020, we wholeheartedly said that the best diet to combine with intermittent fasting was probably keto. And here's the thing, that still works great, and that's still phenomenal. But the benefit to being glued into my channel is the fact that I'm always gonna bring you the newer stuff. And although that can be frustrating sometimes, you're like, I just got the hang of this, at least you can trust that you're always getting new stuff and always able to evolve and fine tune your diet, your strategy, okay? As a matter of fact, comment down below what kind of diet strategy you're doing right now. I'm curious to see what you're following, or if you're intermittent fasting, what you're combining it with. So what we're starting to see now is that combining time-restricted feeding with a Mediterranean style lifestyle or diet could be really, really good. The reason before we thought keto worked so well with intermittent fasting was because when you're doing keto, you're producing ketones. When you're doing intermittent fasting, you're often producing ketones. So it would make sense that lower carb or ketosis would naturally feed into success with fasting, and it certainly does. But we also start to develop an issue where, if we're so low carb and we're fasting all the time, perhaps we occasionally need some carbohydrates to still trigger cell growth and repair outside of just autophagy. We need the occasional mTOR spike. We need the occasional insulin spike. So with that, we started saying, well, what kind of carbs can we bring in? I'm not about to just bring bread in. I have too much of a history with bread. I'm not about to bring flours in, too much history with cakes and pies. No way. But fruits, some starchier vegetables, okay, I could consider that. Maybe some lentils. Wait a minute, this is looking a lot like the Mediterranean diet, but I still want to have my good fats. So I still want my monounsaturated fats like my macadamia nuts. I still want my olive oil. I still want my fattier fish. I still want the occasional nuts and seeds. Wait, this looks a lot like Mediterranean and I'm not even trying. So this study that was published in Cell Metabolism took a look at shift workers that were firefighters. Okay, October 2022, 137 firefighters that were working rotating 24-hour shifts. So their circadian rhythms and metabolisms were whacked out. In case you didn't know, people that work shift work, their metabolisms get whacked fast, okay? First responders, nurses, military personnel, all this, they end up with serious metabolic issues. So this study put them on a Mediterranean diet or a Mediterranean diet with a 14-hour fast. Okay, this was really fascinating because simply doing a 14-hour fast, which is barely fasting, it's more just time-restricted, consolidated eating, by following the same diet, the group that fasted had huge reductions in what is called their very low density lipoprotein, VLDL. I'm sure you're familiar with cholesterol, okay? I'm sure you're familiar with HDL and LDL, but you may or may not know what VLDL is. VLDL is the very dense LDL that we know based upon the research to be the one that is really the problem. So if we can have a reduction in VLDL size, we're really off to a great start. But that's not all that happened. There was a huge reduction in HbA1c. So these groups were eating the same thing. And here's what's fascinating is these groups were eating carbs. If you're eating low carb or keto, there's no surprise your HbA1c drops. You're not gonna have glucose and insulin spikes. But if you're consuming carbs, when you see a reduction in HbA1c by eating the same amount of carbs, but just adjusting your timing, that's huge. But it also changes in blood pressure too. Now, the reason that it was probably so dramatic is that a Mediterranean diet being super rich in monounsaturated fats already massively improves insulin sensitivity. The Mediterranean diet is probably the best diet for insulin sensitivity anyway, because of the monounsaturated fats. But you combine that with low levels of insulin when you're fasting. So when you're fasting, your insulin levels drop. And then when you do eat food, you want to make sure that your cells are insulin sensitive enough to take that nutrition in. That's the problem you face with people that are maybe intermittent fasting with very flexible dieting, right? They fast, and then maybe they break their fast with a sandwich or something. But if you break your fast with, something lean, some lean protein, maybe a little bit of fruit, and then a little few hours later, add some macadamia nuts, That's a really good strategy. I popped a link down below for House of Macadamia. By the way, you know I talk about macadamia nuts all the time. That is a 20% off discount link that you can only get through my videos. So you're not gonna find that discount link anywhere else. House of Macadamia has been talked about on Joe Rogan, Tim Ferriss has talked about them. They're blowing up. This brand is getting huge because they're really changing the way in which we look at macadamia nuts. But they have macadamia nut oil, macadamia nut bars. The stuff is awesome, and it's all harvested and grown in South Africa, really supporting local farmers. That's the best part about this. It's really good for the local communities, and it's just doing right by the world. So check them out. That link is down below. It saves you 20% off whatever you want to get from them. It's called House of Macadamia. So that link down below. How do you do this? Like, how do you do Mediterranean with intermittent fasting? Okay, let's talk about this for a moment so you have a playbook and something you can follow. I'm not going to give you the full meal plan, but I'll give you the basics that you can basically apply yourself. If you wanted to intermittent fast, first off, start with doing like 3 or 4 days a week at like 18 or 20 hours of fasting. Maybe 16 if you're really getting used to it. How would you break your fast in a Mediterranean fashion? Nothing really changes there. You would use lean meats, either lean red meat, lean fish, lean poultry, lean pork, any kind of lean meat that you can just break your fast with, okay? And maybe a small amount of fruit, but realistically, break your fast with just protein. And then about 30 or 60 minutes later, in a Mediterranean fashion, you could add some more of your fruit and some more of your carbs coming in from like lentils. I love like black lentils or red split lentils, super low carb and low GI in the grand scheme of things. And they're so low glycemic that I'm comfortable adding fats along with those carbs. So my next meal might look something like this. I might have maybe some ground lamb, like a lamb burger, like a lean lamb burger, or lean red meat, because red meat is fine on Mediterranean as long as it's lean. So like a 93 or 96% lean beef, okay? Then I'll put maybe a little bit of feta cheese, a little bit of avocado, a little bit of olive oil, and maybe I'll put it over a bed of lentils or something. That's a perfect way to describe what the ideal Mediterranean style meal would look like for me after fasting. So those kinds of meals, you're getting a rich antioxidant profile, because when you're fasting, a lot of times people end up neglecting a lot of nutrition because they've been fasting for so long. They might eat 1 or 2 meals. They're really not all that hungry, and they miss out on the antioxidants. They miss out on the micronutrients. But the nice thing about the Mediterranean style diet, especially if you choose lean red meat, which is nutritious to begin with, you're getting a massive, massive dose of antioxidants and vitamins and minerals in one single meal. There's no better diet for 1 meal a day. There's no better diet for 2 meals a day, or no better diet for intermittent fasting based upon the research we know today. Okay? And you can still apply it with low carb. You just eliminate the lentils or reduce the fruit, right? So then as the day goes on, I might increase my fats a little bit more and reduce the carbs. And I might add more of the aged cheeses. I might add more of the olive oil, the avocados. I'll have some macadamia nuts along the side, or maybe I'll drizzle macadamia nut oil on top of my avocado and just get a really nice high fat, because that way I can get the concentration of calories to help make up for the fact that I was restricting calories earlier in the day. And there's gonna be people that say intermittent fasting only works because you're restricting calories. But when you put the diets side by side, even if you don't lose weight, there seems to be more metabolic benefit, even if the calories are the same, to a regular diet or that same diet with fasting, okay? The problem is you need to make sure you get enough calories in. But with Mediterranean, it's easy to do because you can load up on those really good, healthy fats, monounsaturated fats, the avocado oil, the olive oil, the macadamia nuts, the fatty fish, and whatnot. So as always, keep it locked in here on my channel, and I'll see you tomorrow.